welcome back Shauna, who's not sleeping at present, sleepless night. Well, she will be. We've got a new person in Democratic Services. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hiya, my name's Jo Griffiths.
Hi, Jo.
She'll be responsible for the OWL and all of the other sort of the gubbins as well. So thank you, everybody. As I say, welcome back those that won their elections and so forth, that are re-nominated to the authority, but we're still working on the old membership, and we've been notified of who will be on the new membership, but we'll get to that as we move down the road. So preliminary matters. Apologies received from PCC, Emily Spurrell, Councillor Sam Gorse, and Mr. Anthony Boyle, our independent member. Can I ask if there's any declaration? Sorry.
Apologies, Tracy Dickinson, please.
Councillor Tracy Dickinson, please. Any others? No. So, does any member have a declaration of interest in relation to an item on the agenda? There's no items of particular urgency that would mean we have to change the running order, and there are no items of exempt business on this agenda. So we move on to the main business of the agenda. Has everybody got the papers that they need? They're all been circulated. So item 2 is the minutes of the previous, and that's the budget meeting of the authority. That's set out there for members. Can they be taken as agreed? Thank you. So 3 minutes of the previous meeting for the appointment committee on pages 25 and 26. Again, set out in the papers. Can that be agreed? Thank you. So item 4 is the corporate risk register. It's on pages 27 to 94. I'll ask the chief to talk into that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The purpose of the report is to inform members of the current risks contained within the corporate risk register, the status of the risks and any associated control measures, including updates for the period October 2022 to March 2023. And it's recommended that members approve the corporate risk register for 2022-23, which incorporates the current status of those risks. And this is a familiar report back into members with details of the risks. We have referenced previously that we're going to refresh the corporate risk register moving forward. But what I would just reiterate is the details on paragraph 5, which is the strategic leadership team has previously considered the outcomes from an internal audit report of April 17 and considered the authority's approach to risk management. Overall, compliance was found to be good with some substantial elements. The report also required the authority to consider its risk appetite and tolerance to ensure that the status of all risks is updated regularly, and these have been completed. Nothing further to add, Chair, other than to open up to members to see whether they would want to scrutinise any of the risks or the mitigations that have been put in place, subject to the refresh of the risk register.
I mean, members, our role is to keep the eye on the ball and to hold officers to account. And this is our opportunity to do that if there's anything on the risk register in particular.
Thank you, Chair. Just refer to page 38 and the reference to 90% of the Grenfell Phase 1 recommendations being implemented. It's not clear whether that's actually on schedule or ahead or behind, and what the timescale is for actually completing all of those recommendations.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Mason. What we'll do is we'll ensure that the details are refreshed to reflect an update in regards to the accuracy. As it stands, there's 46 recommendations, of which 43 have been discharged by Merseyside Fire Rescue Service, and 1 is in the process of being discharged, and it's gone through consultation with the representative bodies, and now we have a way forward in relation to stairwell protection. The other 2 are reliant on third parties, so government departments and so on and so forth. So from our perspective, all of the actions and all the recommendations will have been discharged, subject to changes to some of the legislative requirements placed on the authority, at which point we will revisit those said recommendations and make sure that we are adapting to the changes. And so we are in an extremely good place in regards to our arrangements and the assurance that we can provide to the authority. But again, we'll have that particular risk updated to reflect those comments too.
I mean, this is a Merseyside risk register, but most of the recommendations are national. And also, some of them will require more money from the government and legislation from the government. And I predict that that's where we'll be waiting. We will perform our part of the task. We will be waiting for some national money and legislation. Thank you. Anything else on this item 4? If not, the recommendation is that members approve the updated corporate risk register for 22-23, which incorporates the current status of those risks to March 23. Is that agreed, colleagues? Thank you. So, very good one, this one. Item 5, British Firefighter Challenge 2024, pages 95 to 124. Chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll introduce the report and the recommendations and go into a bit of detail. What I would say is, quickly imagine Paul Kay, who sat to my left, who is leading on this particular piece of work on behalf of the authority. So if there's any specific questions around the detail, then I may well redirect you to him. But the purpose of this report is to inform members of the opportunity for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Authority to host the 2024 British Firefighter Challenge in the Liverpool City Centre, and it will be at the Pierhead. And the recommendations recommend that members approve the proposal that the authority host the British Firefighter Challenge and approve the establishment of a £50,000 reserve as outlined in the report to cover any costs not funded through sponsorship. But would also provide members with the reassurance that that sponsorship is drawn in by the organisers of the event, and they are very confident in having secured a piece of bringing in like the said kind of investment, but also the sponsorship that Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service are able to achieve as well, should negate any risk to the authority in that respect. The British Firefighter Challenge in itself is a competition organised by firefighters for firefighters, and it's hosted in different fire and rescue services each year. And it's a really upbeat and engaging event, and certainly something that we are keen to host here in Merseyside to continue that kind of focusing on the well-being of our staff. It's an annual sporting event with the following aims: to inspire health and fitness across the UK Fire and Rescue Service, to support the physical and mental rehabilitation of operational and retired colleagues, to provide a social platform that brings firefighters and their families together from around the world, and it is a Wales-focused event, to advocate for mental health, to promote volunteering. Again, we need some volunteers to support the endeavour, to improve the diversity of the fire and rescue service in the broader sense, but particularly showcased here in Merseyside, and to create economic opportunity aligned to the event and engage with young people in regard to the fire and rescue service and becoming a firefighter for the future. And that opportunity would avail itself for the weekend of the 27th and 28th of July, which is the same weekend which has been identified as Pride. That's intentional, and we've been working with the organisers for Pride to ensure that the event, which takes place in the same location, or concludes in the same location, is fully inclusive, and the organisers are keen and very keen to have Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service and the Firefighter Challenge as part of their celebrations and our diversity as well. And what we would envisage is that about 250 male and female firefighters from across the world descend on Liverpool to go head to head in a number of physical challenges over the course of 2 days. And I won't go into the specific challenges themselves, only to say they are challenging and taxing, but that's the nature of that kind of the physicality of the firefighting role, and the celebration of that, and the kind of the diversity of the fire and rescue service worldwide, and it's a real opportunity, an uplifting opportunity for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, our own staff and volunteers, but equally the fire and rescue service for the UK and more widely. The rest of the report goes on to detail how we would staff the event, some of the legal implications which have obviously been in consideration, the financial implications and how we intend to cover the costs and how the costs are broken down. And then the appendices itself is just the flyer utilised by other fire and rescue services to incorporate the benefits and so on of involving ourselves in the delivery of the said firefighter challenge. And again, happy to take any questions, Chair, from that respect.
The whistle of heads. Okay, I think you turned off.
Yeah, thank you. I very much support the recommendation. And when I first read the report, I was a little bit concerned to know that it was being held on the same weekend as the Pride event, because we've all had a very positive and active role in the Pride event. But I think from what the chief just said, that's not going to be an issue. And as I understand it, the organisers of the Pride event are happy to have it on that same weekend. But I was a bit concerned that there might be a bit of a conflict. So that's what the chief could just convey that completely.
Yeah, that's okay. I will do. But Paul, do you want to say the level of engagement we've got so far?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Councillor, we've met with Andy Harry, who's the lead for Pride, and they are very much keen to shoulder to shoulder with us. So the main sort of celebration of Pride event is at the pier head, and the British Firefighter Challenge will be taking place in Water Street between the Cunard building and the Lider building. And so the whole celebration event will see up to 25,000 people, seeing firefighters take part in the challenge along with the Pride celebration event.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, thanks. Just to ask really, will this involve collaboration? I suppose it's fairly obvious with, after last week's Eurovision with the NHS and the police, with what was potentially quite a large event.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can imagine the amount of planning that goes into Pride and the joint action groups within the city region. We are just tagging in and bolting onto that. So of course we'll be working with the city planners, public safety, NHS, police, everybody who gets behind Pride, and we become part of that major event as well.
That's excellent, because that collaboration was mentioned on the risk register too, wasn't it? So that's, I think it sounds like a wonderful event.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, it takes your mind back really. I think it was at 2007, 2008 when we hosted the World Firefighter Games, which was just a fantastic opportunity, you know, to sell Merseyside, but, you know, with that obviously sell Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service. Is this sort of modelled on using the experiences that we gained from that, or is it it looks like a rather smaller event than that, but is that the case? But as I say, the experience that we had all those years ago now seems to be coming back. It's half as successful as that was. It'll be a fantastic event.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Rennie, yeah, I suppose you go back to 2008 when we had the World Firefighters Games here in Merseyside, and how uplifting that has been. And you only have to look to last weekend in the Eurovision Song Contest and how events such as that put us back in the step of the communities of Liverpool. And it's very similar, really. It's kind of building on the success of 2008, the success more latterly. But it's very much about kind of engaging our whole workforce in what is a celebrated event of the role of a firefighter, and utilising our access and our relationship with Liverpool Pride to bring it to life. And the more events we do like this, the better it is, and the more focused we are on improving the diversity of the workforce too. So very much a celebration of what Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service does. It feeds into its communities, but celebrating the role of the firefighters as well. So yeah, we will take all of them from 2008, albeit there's probably very few of us still left who were part of the organisation at that particular point in time. But Paul's referenced some of the event planning, the arrangements that we put in place, and whether it be 2008 or it be last week, we take the learning to make sure that the event is safe, but maybe fully showcases the fire and rescue service in the best possible way.
Councillor.
Thanks very much for that, Chair. Fully support this, fully support it. Did get me back to 2008, took me back to 2006, when I was with your colleague Goldberg and Cotton. And we should never ever forget that. But it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, just look at the difference in the group today to what it was back then. The gender alone is as big as Liam Leslie in the last time we had it. So well done to everyone.
Thank you. Yes, Jim?
I can hear that there's obviously, a lot that's been built on, and it's really positive, and because it's in such a positive light, is there any sort of common strategy around this as to pushing it out and sort of like highlighting the work that's done by the fire service, by the authority, and also, the strengths and opportunities to, support?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Deb's here and Deb's team will be fundamental in the comms that go alongside it. So the team themselves that come in, they will do communications more broadly, but from a Merseyside perspective, we will capitalise on that. And it really is, that kind of showcasing the firefighter, which goes back to Lynn's comments around the diversity of the workforce. It's a real opportunity for making the role of the firefighter accessible to all of our communities, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, and the likes. And that shouldn't be lost on anyone. Whilst it's a fun and enjoyable event, it very much puts us in the spotlight, and so making sure that our communications, the strategy, the reasons why we're hosting events are communicated kind of clearly and loudly is very much fundamental part of the plan.
Thanks, Chair. Can we also notify our councils to say to put it on their website if this is going on, and then we can spread it all around then in our different areas? Thanks, Chair. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Fenn. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it does take you back to the World Firefighting Games. It's slightly different, but it's whilst we're hosting it, there'll be an organisation as well. The members should note that as recommendation B, there is a £50,000 at risk. Chief has given us an assurance that that will all be found, or that should not be a barrier to us just getting on with what is good. And we can showcase the fire service at a fantastic event like Pride, and it can be role modelling all the things that we want to widen the look of Mersey Fire. I know there's the national issues as well, but we want Mersey Fire to reflect Merseyside, the same look about the two, and we can use that. And maybe also, building on the Eurovision, we can do something with the Ukrainian fire service. You're very welcome to, they've got some problems over there at the moment. I hope that that's all sorted out by then. But, they need our help as well. And we've been giving them fantastic support. So it is absolutely a showcasing opportunity. And maybe there'll be a chance for some members, the 100-metre canvas or the block of flats leaflet drop. I somehow doubt it. But, the firefighters and those involved know that members will give them absolute, complete support on this one. It's a great opportunity for us, here again in Merseyside, showcasing what's best for the whole of the British Fire Service. So the recommendations.
I was going to say, Phil was going to give us the £50,000 out of these bank accounts.
That's another issue for another time. We understand what you're saying. So members, it's in two parts. A, approve the proposal, the authority hosts the British Firefighter Challenge in 24, and B, approve the establishment of a £50,000 reserve as outlined in the report to cover any costs not funded from sponsorship. Is that agreed, Collins?
Agreed.
Thank you. So we move on to 6. Item 6, prevention of fire standard implementation, pages 125 to 134. Chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We're committed to the authority that we will bring back an update against the fire standards that have been implemented across the UK Fire Risk Reserves as and when achieved. So it's no surprise that we bring the prevention fire standard back very swiftly after it was released, given the amount of work and we've got Merseyside Fire Risk Reserves, those in relation to preventative endeavours and the fact that we're previously being defined by Her Majesty's inspectors as outstanding in this particular area. But this report is specifically to provide members with confirmation of the full implementation of the prevention fire standard, and the recommendation is recommended that members note the contents of this report and the appendices And the real focus of the prevention fire standard is described in paragraph 5, and it goes on to detail a fire and rescue service that works to educate its communities to adopt safe behaviours, improving their safety, health and well-being, one that reduces community-related risks identified through the community risk management planning, and reduces incidents through the delivery of effective, efficient and targeted prevention activities. And I think in a nutshell that captures exactly where Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service is at. It goes on to say a service with a learning and sharing culture, working collaboratively with others, where appropriate, seeking to improve and innovate preventative activities, one which contributes to a more consistent national approach to reducing risk and keeping communities safe. And again, some of the work that we've done nationally around prevention, around safeguarding, around home fire safety checks, etc. Again, is evidence of our attainment of that particular standard. So I've got nothing further to add, Chair, other than to say there's the prevention standard outcome is captured on page 129 onwards. But the fact of the matter is we've delivered against that standard, we're confident in delivery against that standard. And those all the way down to the work of the Assistant Chief and the Area Manager for Prevention, Mark Thomas, and his team. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, colleagues, any questions on that item? No? The recommendation is that members note the contents of the report and the appendices. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. So 7, contract for business travel services, new provider, pages 135 to 150.
So, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Chair. And again, this is relatively straightforward, but I just draw members' attention to the quality impact assessment which is attached. But the purpose of the report is to seek members' approval in awarding a new contract for the management of travel arrangements for Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, as the value of the orders over the life of the contract may exceed £250,000, and standing orders require members to approve such a contract. And the recommended that members approve the award of a travel management services contract to Click Travel. And that's on the basis that the current travel management contract is due to expire in July. The procurement team have sought to procure a new travel management contract arrangement through leading public sector procurement organisation, and that being Yorkshire Purchasing Organisation, and we've utilised the framework to indeed do that. And the basis of that is to provide a high level of service, high level of information around travel, competitive travel and competitive accommodation costs. The new contract will be in place for 5 years duration, and that's subject to a 4-year potential for a 12-month extension, subject to satisfactory performance. And again, just to reiterate the fact that it has been procured through the YPO framework. And again, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions on any of the specific detail, and the quality impact assessment is included within the report.
That's all.
Yeah. Point 17 says it is required that any TMC can report on the amount of carbon dioxide emitted due to travel. To what extent was potential carbon emissions taken into account when deciding the contract?
I suppose from the booking and the travel arrangements, I think Merseyside Fire and Rescue and officers particularly travel less frequently down, when the journeys are unnecessary these days than they have done previously, and that's down to a whole raft of things, the pandemic and more innovation and Teams and Zoom. So the amount of travel we do now is very much more limited. And then on the basis of the methods of travel, we're very conscious of the need to manage our carbon footprint and kind of limit that as much as we are able. But by way of example, I was in London yesterday, travelled down by the train, and then returned in the same route. And that was specifically because my attendance was crucial to the debate that was taking place in the House of Commons. Ordinarily, if it was something else and I could do it remotely, then I would have undertaken that particular route through. And so we're very cognizant of the necessity on officers and members for that matter to limit unnecessary travel. But where we deem it to be necessary, we would take the most expedient and environmentally friendly route.
I mean, on that point, I mean, as part of the city region and the lobbying that we do, part of the problem is, if you're gonna, which we must, have modal change, the trains simply have got to be better. We've got to have a better public transport system. It's off the agenda for this, but, we have an investment in this country where the administration is in London, and going down to London and being in London is part of running the UK fire service, British fire service. But the standard of transport that's available to us is very poor. Anyway, I'm going to the train from hopefully. Okay, so that's item 7. Any other questions? The recommendation, members approve the award of a travel management service contract to Click Travel. Is that agreed? Thank you. So, item 8, detection and identification monitoring DIM uplift, pages 151 to 156. Chief.
That's this one, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of the report is to inform members of the outcome of the competitive process for the procurement of detection, identification and monitoring equipment for the National Resilience Units. And the recommendation is that members approve the lots as prescribed to the respective suppliers, as in the rest of paragraph 2. As far as introduction and background, the procurement is part of the ND2 Asset Refresh Programme, which is the refresh of all of the UK's national resilience assets over the next 5 or 6 years. I think this will take. Paragraph 4 just highlights who's been involved within this process so far. So that's Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, the Home Office, National Resilience Lead Officers, the authorities procurement teams, and the detection, identification and monitoring working groups that we have within the National Resilience capability. Members are aware that Merseyside is the lead authority for national resilience and as such has carried out a procurement process. The procurement process is highlighted in paragraphs 8 to 10. It's quite an extensive process that we've gone through. And just to highlight that we will be doing this a lot more frequently on behalf of the authority, as I say, as part of our role as the lead authority for national resilience. The agreement as lead authority for national resilience with the Home Office would procure DIM equipment on behalf of the national resilience teams, and the estimated cost is approximately £9 million. And as such, the anticipated spend will exceed the £250,000. The authority standing orders and now requires members' approval. As far as the funds themselves go, all of the national resilience procurement moving forward, this is from the Home Office and there's no direct cost to Merseyside Fire and Rescue Authority. All funds for the national resilience replacements will be coming through direct from the Home Office as part of the new Dimensions 2 procurement process over the next few years. The new ND2 process was supposed to be concluded in the next financial year. However, there's absolutely no chance that will be happening now. I've had lots of discussions with Home Office recently and it's been pushed back probably for the next 4 or 5 years. As I say, this is going to be an ongoing process. Thank you. Happy to take any questions on the paper.
So DIMS, that's the piece of equipment if you see it, you will be running the other way, except for our firefighters who are running that way. So are there any questions on that item? If not, I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but there's the recommendation in paragraphs A, B, C, D, E, F and G as printed in the agenda. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. So then we move to 9, pathway to net zero, pages 157 to 214.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And the purpose of this report is to present members with a route map to net zero and the details, the governance and structure to be implemented and the monitoring of the interventions required to make ourselves attain that particular ambition. So net zero by 2040. And recommendations specifically are recommendations that members note the content of the net zero route map and B, note the governance structure, including the appointment of the Deputy Chief Fire Officer as the senior project sponsor executive. And this goes back to probably conversations we've had over a number of weeks and months, more latterly around the attainment of net zero by 2040. And we've looked at this kind of capabilities within the service to be able to provide that level of assurance to members. We didn't feel like we had that level of skill. As a result of that, we went out and engaged a consulting company called Anomia Research and Consulting Limited to look at the arrangements that we've got in place to provide us with support to ensure that our route map to net zero was sufficiently robust enough and fully considered in order to make sure that we're meeting the ambitions of the authority. And Anomia Research Consulting Limited was appointed by the Eastern Shires Purchasing Organisation framework to support the authority in undertaking a detailed review of the service's existing greenhouse gas footprint, including key recommendations for improvement, and B, developing a pathway to net zero which aligns with the Liverpool City Region 2040 zero ambition, which again was approved by the authority some time ago. The outcomes of that review are attached in Appendix A, and we recognise and hence the necessity to draw in a senior sponsor at a principal officer level, that actually to deliver against that route map requires it to be cross-organisational involvement, recognising that it will have impacts on building and energy, transport, procurement, waste services, corporate communications, legal services, estates, fleet, procurement, and so on and so forth. So hence the reason why we put some impetus behind driving the change and the ambition. And as I said, the actual route map is contained within the appendices. What I would draw your attention to is specifically, and sometimes it can be lost under, in the document itself, it comes after further reading, but under 6.3 on page 207, it goes on to detail next step actions, and those next step actions are the focus for the action plan that we will be generating, and the one that Nick will oversee on behalf of the authority, and then we will regularly provide updates against the progress that's been made in regards to attaining that net zero status by 2040. And again, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was a bit surprised actually to see we haven't got solar panels on any of our current buildings. I know that's going to change with the new training academy, but there does seem a vast opportunity there with buildings like this that are occupied during the day and can make the best use of having solar panels. And when you consider the private sector have been investing in them on their buildings and have access to less of the cheap financing that we have, it's perhaps an opportunity we should look into closer. Just on the issue of electric vehicles, completely understand the concerns over fire appliances at the moment, or technologies immature. I think there is more of an opportunity to ensure there are charging points in all of our premises, so we can move more fleet vehicles over to electric power, and also that encourages more of our staff to do the same with their own vehicles.
Absolutely, Chair. In relation to solar panels, you'll find references to that within the documentation itself, and certainly that's something we are looking to exploit. And equally, in regards to fleet, we are in the process now of changing the state and the infrastructure that will support the utilisation of electric vehicles. I'll come back to fire engines. We're not quite there yet around the technology, but even more latterly, next just change the decisions around the vehicles that we will utilise for officers. So we're moving from petrol, diesel to hybrid, and we know hybrid is a step through to fully electric. But again, just based on performance of the vehicle, we need to be assured more than anyone else that when they require those vehicles and those officers are able to respond effectively. And to underpin that particular change, the infrastructure will change. So in the not too distant future, certainly the new training facilities, the new training centre, and on some of the stations where we are doing significant refurbishment, we will start to see electrical charging points emerge at headquarters likewise. So that's the benefits of this particular action plan. The benefits around someone external of the service come in, take a look at the arrangements we've got in place, and make really strong recommendations for us to deliver improvements. And as we do talk about 2040, that's not too far off when we talk about some significant infrastructural change, but we are on that journey now. In regard to fire engines, there are some examples of electric fire engines, but they have some significant limitations too, until we're convinced that those limitations are being addressed and they can function effectively as a fire engine, not only in response but also in pumping. We're not in a position yet to procure that particular vehicle, but it is again, technology will catch up, and I'm very sure we will report back on, no doubt the authority purchase and first for the electric fire engine, and that will be a promise in no time, I would suggest. So the press and the observation said, well, not made, thank you.
I mean, Kensington Fire Station has a windmill on the roof, broke down after about a year, and it's, one of those things. There's just coming over the ridge, literally, a step change in solar cell technology. So you have to keep up with this, don't you? And then also lithium ion moving over to sodium ion, Ni. There's a lot of change. And then the national debate that's going on at the moment about electric cars and the manufacture of electric and batteries. There's so much change. We're a little behind the technology because we're not a frontline user. But in terms of our specification, we've got to be right on the ball here. Yes. John.
Thank you. I've read with interest, and I'm assuming this is going to be published onto the website, and then sort of in going forward, is it going to be very much a dynamic document so that it will be added to? That's one of those questions. And then also, are you planning, I want the fire service to be able to sort of say, this is what we're doing. Is this going to be released in terms of like a news item, and that you have a pathway now and a route to actually go into 2040? And then the final thing was just that there were some examples in terms of businesses and organisations across the city region that have utilised solar and various other methods, and it's just whether there's any plans to have any engagement with those organisations, whether they be public or private sector, that are exemplars in this area.
The answer is yes to all of those things. And I suppose the purpose of bringing it to members' attention was to say we took an action, probably a couple of months back now, that we would commission someone to come in and look at providing us with that route map through. And also we know how important it is to put the correct governance in place and at the right level as well to drive the changes to meet some of those recommendations with solid actions. So the document informs an action plan. The action plan then informs the accountability for the service and for the members, the whole officers to account on our progress, and incorporated in that will be communications in relation to the work that we're doing, and also reach out into other partners who are getting some of this stuff right, and taking the learning from them to ensure that we are delivering the highest, best possible level of service, and also we're meeting that ambition as expediently as we possibly can. So yeah, on all counts.
Thank you.
I mean, we all wear different hats with our own authorities and the rest of it. One of the things I do is with reserve forces, and something's come up with Ben, which is interesting. You can talk about this cell, that cell, windmill, but actually a good issue is just decarbonisation, moving from carbon to something else that's more sustainable. And that we should embrace as well, not being too specific about a battery, a solar cell, but it is just using whatever means you can to get away from carbon-based heating, cooling, operating your buildings and trading fleet. Councillor Bennett.
Thanks, Chair. Apologies, this is rather loosely related to actually, just talk about charging points. There was an item on the news this morning, it was GB News, and there are other stations as well. But it was talking about the increase in the number of fires that fire and rescue services are asked to attend, in as much as charging vehicles indoors. Now, I didn't catch it, but I'm surmising that they're going to quite indoors on an integrated garage, perhaps in a home. Have we seen any increase at all in that sort of?
GB News are about a week behind in that case. We've seen all over the press at the Times and things last week.
And then a presentation on that, Chair.
We had a presentation on lithium ion batteries, yes. Chief.
Yes, And we have had instances involving lithium-ion batteries in both domestic properties and also in kind of industrial settings. So, battery energy storage systems. So, in effect, they are, and we know they are problematic, not only in regards to the severity which they bear, but also how taxing is to extinguish. When it talks about in the domestic setting, it doesn't always refer to in a garage, because actually what you see is the lithium batteries are all over the UK in a whole multitude of different guises. We ourselves have had a double fatality on the back of so individuals charging an electric bike in an open plan living room, and then there were unfortunately 2 individuals, father and son, lost their life as a result of that particular fire. So it's not a Merseyside specific issue, it's a national issue, and there's people working on behalf of the National Fire Chiefs Council to better understand how to deal with such incidents and how to extinguish them and how to protect communities. But it is a problem to solve one issue, which is probably the environmental impact and reducing an environmental issue, and then we kind of create ourselves another one in regards to how we deal with that particular risk. But we are really focused in on that, and then there will be also part of the budget setting process we allocated money to look at innovative practice in regards to the extinctions of fires of such nature. So there's no, it extends beyond just domestic into industrial, but it's very much on our radar, something we are very focused in on tackling effectively.
There was a session at the fire conference in Nottingham about this, and that particular case with the 2 fatalities in Hoover was a situation where someone bought a bike, bought a kit, basically taped an engine onto the bike, and then bought a battery, which was just done up to it. And that's the problem. You can regulate, a battery-driven bike, but somebody doing it DIY, it's very, very difficult to regulate. It's like regulating fireworks as well. You find them online, it's very difficult to regulate them. We are trying to lobby on this issue, which is going to grow and grow. And we, for the protection of our firefighters, for the protection of our communities, this is something that we need to see, and we need to try and get government to legislate on the dangers of this emerging technology. Thank you. Yes.
No, that's sort of drifted away from that report in itself. It's just on that point, I know that there's previously been done some work, also some exploration work, do potential of a joint campaign with STEM to look at safety aspects, and also putting information out there on a residential and maybe also on a business aspect of what is safe to do. For some people there are instances where people have cables, like extension cables going down the road to actually charge their car up, but I don't know whether that was explored any further. It's quite some time ago now.
Thanks, Councillor. What we have got an office specifically at this moment in time is part of the project allocated to Sir John Boyle, Group Manager John Boyle, specifically looking at the implications around lithium batteries, storage sites, and so on and so forth. And what I will ask him to do is get in contact with you, back with those that were made and any interventions that were made with them, to work collaboratively around providing advice and guidance. Because we referenced previously around photoelectric cells on tops of buildings and the positive kind of contribution they can make to the environment. But a lot of residential accommodation now draw them into a lithium battery, and then you store it and then redirect it back into their home for use. So we know there's an additional amount of risk there, and that's where spend is absolutely fundamental in the kind of communication. Even if it's around the mitigations that we put in place and the advice to residents if they have come across a fire, because they're quite difficult to deal with and equally they produce fumes which are quite noxious. So we will, I will pick up and ask them to communicate directly with them. That's okay.
Let's, when we get into the new year, let's have another members briefing session on the whole issue of lithium-ion and emerging technologies like that. I think we found it very, very, those that were attending find it very, very interesting. And it's the problem of the future. Okay, yes, sorry.
Yeah, just two things. Firstly, on 2.3, it talks about the footprint not including staff commuting, business travel, and downstream leased assets. When we've been advised that perhaps we should include that. I know actually looking further along on the fact, there are suggestions that would obviously reduce emissions from those sort of lines. But obviously, why are we not including those? Because it's important. Sorry, yeah, it's 2.3, so page 170. It should be noted that the footprint currently excludes staff commuting, business travel, and downstream leased assets, where it is advised that we include these, but it's our prerogative that we don't have to.
Okay, look, that's fine. That's something I will take away and discuss with Nick and the project team just in scope. What I would say, to some degree, your members will be aware we've just introduced hybrid working arrangements. That's very much predicated on a couple of things. One is learning from the pandemic. The other one was to try and limit the cost of living impacts on staff. So with journeys in, we've got the technology to support them working remotely, but remaining accessible and being in the workplace more than they would be in their own environment. So that also has a significant impact on journeys into and away from work, and so we think that will probably have a positive impact there. But what we will do is I'll take that particular comment back and just provide the assurance and the reasons why we've decided not to focus in on that particular area at this moment in time. And I'm happy to revisit that if they're not happy with the decision that the officers have made.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, I understand it's difficult to measure, but if there was some measure that reduced our own footprint, but increased it in these other areas that we're not measuring, it's hard to see that as a win. But obviously, it does reduce it as well. The only other thing is, on page 192, we've got the mention of the existing cycle scheme, obviously encouraging people to cycle to work. But firefighters themselves can't make best use of this scheme because they have to take their packs home with them and you struggle to do that on a bicycle. So is that something that might be revisited, or could you explain why we can't?
Yeah, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for firefighters because most of their kit and their equipment is stored on the station which they are working. So, and they have a couple of sets of kit as well to be able to facilitate that. So more often than not, I go back to my embryonic career within Merseyside Fire Rescue Service. I used to live in Bristol. I used to cycle every day into Brooklyn and the fire station. There's nothing that would preclude a firefighter from doing that on occasion, but with prior knowledge, on most occasions they may well be detached to another station. Might be a little bit more difficult to cycle to because it's not within close proximity to their home, and they choose to take alternative travel there, and their kit either goes with them or goes via a tender driver. So I don't necessarily see that as being an issue. I think firefighters are, and the provision that we can provide them can cycle to work, and we can still continue to support that particular initiative as well.
So the resolution, the recommendation is A, note the contents of that during the route map. B, note the governance structure, including the appointment of the deputy director as a senior project executive. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. So, just in closing, thank you very much. I think everybody here is hoping to continue here next year. I mean, it's 2 years, isn't it? So, congratulations to all those who know that they've been reappointed to the authority. If you could encourage those of your colleagues who have been appointed and are, there's a couple of members we know of who are returning to the authority. Some are brand new members. If you'd encourage them to get in touch Officers will conduct them, give them all information, and our next meeting, which is when we will meet with all of our new colleagues, will be the AGM of the authority on the 8th of June, and I do believe that will be at 1 p.m. And if there's anything else, let me know. Otherwise, I will close the meeting by thanking you for all that you've done